Hello everybody and welcome back to a brand new episode of F1 Career Mode here on the channel. I hope you're all having a great day. We are coming off of, well, a couple of heartbreaking finishes. Australia, and well, last episode our engine failed with 2 laps to go in the Chinese Grand Prix, where we found ourselves suddenly in position to not only score our first podium in Formula 1, but as well to score a potential first win. We were lining up Lando Norris after a bit of a controversial pass on Lewis Hamilton to go and take the lead with the DRS, but unfortunately it wasn't quite meant to be. Heartbreaking to say the least as we come into this weekend, but after the contact with Lewis Hamilton, he had some comments as well on the top step of the podium, winning his first race with his new team at Ferrari. We were asked about Lewis Hamilton's comments on the podium coming into this weekend.
What are your thoughts on Lewis's comments from China Gary?
Yeah, Ted, I mean, obviously he's free to think whatever he wants, but honestly, he's not even necessarily wrong. A little bit too aggressive, and I wasn't trying to run into him, it just kind of happened, and we're just going to focus forward here on Suzuka, and I'm not going to change my driving. I'm going to keep fighting, and hopefully we'll get a win this weekend. So that was my comments, pretty straightforward. Yeah, Lewis can say what he wants. We're not going to change our ways, but I mean, I had no intent of running into the side of Lewis, but obviously, especially a Ferrari, I'm not really trying to run into a Ferrari when we are still signed under Ferrari and looking for a future at Ferrari. So definitely was not any ill intent there, but I can see where Hamilton was coming from, but he still ended up getting the win at the end of the day, and Lando Norris ended up P2, a great run for him after a rough season opening round for not only Lando Norris but McLaren. They bounced back fairly well. Piastri was still down in P8. He's finished 8th in both races so far this season. The problem here is Williams only has 2 points right now coming into this weekend, and both myself and Albon have been in position to run probably top 5, top 6, and obviously we were in position to win in China. We should have, you know, well over probably 35, 40 points at this point, and instead we have 2. That's quite embarrassing, and they're both owned by Alex Albon. We come through into qualifying and we're looking to just change things around. Not happy with how the first 2 rounds have gone, specifically because they've been mechanical failures on the car. Williams has made a huge step forward this season, but is the price to pay low durability? It certainly seems like that after just 2 rounds, but we'll see what happens this weekend here in Japan. Now, as one of my favorite circuits to drive in Formula 1, it's a lot of fun to go around the Suzuka circuit. Sebastian Vettel, I'm sure, is thrilled to be back here. This is his favorite venue in Formula 1, and we'll see what he can do in that Sauber kick, as he had a self-spin in China, which really turned the race up on its head a little bit again, and allowed Hamilton to get in front of me and of course drive away as we come through now to my actually later lap in Q1, and we went from P9 to P5, so quite happy with that. That would be enough to move us through into Q2. We would end up P10. Russell, Gasly, Jackson, Esteban Ocon, and Vettel, the last few to move through. Devin Butler, Liam Lawson, Hulkenberg, Oliver Behrman, and Isaac Hadjar all out in the first round of qualifying now, as we would focus in on Q2. And for myself in Q2, a little bit wide right there through the left-hander, but it would be okay. So we would continue on, and actually overall I was pretty happy this weekend with how the car was driving. I was happy with how the car was driving in China, and I was happy with how it was handling here in Suzuka, and we were putting a quite competitive lap together here in Q2, and we would let it roll through the final few turns here now, and down into the final chicane, and getting up on the curbing, and honestly hit the corners pretty well right there, able to get quite hard on the throttle to the line. Will open the DRS for a second, and we go only P11. That was a bit surprising, so we would have to go for it again. Late in the session, did not want to use a second set of soft tires. I was hoping we would have 2 sets of softs going into Q3, which we expect to be in, as we've kind of found our confidence now in this Williams. And over the course of this lap, we found the speed we needed, which was a full near 0.7 of a second gain as we came to the end of the lap. So this should be enough to get us through into Q3 without much issue, and sure enough, it is. We actually go to the top of the board. And out is Gasly, Sebastian Vettel, Esteban Ocon, Max Verstappen out in Q2, P14. Red Bull having a rough start to the season. It continues. 4-time consecutive champ out in Q2. And Aiden Jackson, Mercedes rookie, out as well, as George Russell continues to really impress and do what he can do for Mercedes, who is just way off to start the season in the development. As we come through into Q3, it's a one and done. That's all we get, simply because we used 2 sets of softs in Q2 instead of the one that we had hoped to use. And overall, I was pretty happy with how this lap was going. We're finding some speed, and as we come through the double left-hander here to set us up for the final run down that long straightaway through 130R, pretty good through that sequence of corners, down into the final chicane again, getting up on the curbing well without issue. It's Tsunoda 8th, Russell 9th, Piastri, Norris P7, P6. Where will we go? We cross the stripe, and it's going to be P5. So 1 spot shy of what we put up on the board in China, and it's going to be actually Alex Albon, who would be P6, and it's going to be actually Ferrari front row lockout with Leclerc and Hamilton, Aston Martin 3rd, 4th, Williams 5th, 6th, McLaren 7th and 8th, and then the parity starts there with the Red Bulls, the Mercedes, and everybody else mixed up together. Let's go to the grid Sunday afternoon as we try to move forward.
The beloved Suzuka had a couple of unplanned years away from the calendar, but it's now back where it belongs, at the heart of the Formula One season. Welcome along to the Japanese Grand Prix. 18 corners make up a lap of the incredible figure-of-8 Suzuka circuit, with 10 to the right and 8 to the left, for a distance of 3.6 miles. Average lap speeds around here are fairly quick. If it stays dry, then expect somewhere in the region of 136 miles per hour. Off the back of a fantastic qualifying session, it's time to see how our starting grid looks like for today's race. A fantastic effort from Charles Leclerc yesterday, and it's put him on pole. And it's Lewis Hamilton alongside. Looking at the rest of today's grid, we have Sainz, Fernando Alonso, Golden Boy, Albon, Norris, Oscar Piastri, Tsunoda, Russell, Gasly, Vettel, Ocon, Verstappen, Jackson, Butler, Liam Lawson, Hulkenberg, Behrman, and Isaac Hadjar. And now it's time to head down to the track.
So then we're ready to go here from Suzuka. It's going to be a 1-stop race, 2-stop, simply going to be slower here by quite a wide margin. So we'll be starting as usual on the medium compound tire, switching over to the hards at some point about midway through this race. Ferrari ready to lead the way.
Here we go then, the formation lap is underway and the track temperature looks warm. That may or may not play into some of the team's hands in today's race.
Everybody electing to start on mediums. Looks like everybody will be aiming for a 1-stop, 2-stop. This doesn't seem to be viable today.
As the cars come back towards the grid to line up for the start of the race, each driver will be wanting to get the best start they possibly can. And they'll be hoping to finish today's race on the podium, failing that, within the points.
Right, boys, first 2 races haven't been easy on us as a team, but let's focus forward and make it happen.
Long season ahead, mate. Let's keep our head in it.
So, we get ready to roll from the 5th position. Now we got a pair of Aston Martins in front of us. Carlos Sainz, who continues to look pretty well on form outside of that spin in Australia, and had to start down the order in China, but turned it into a respectable effort nonetheless. As we get ready to go racing, the 2 Ferraris, Leclerc, Hamilton, the front row. It's lights out. We're racing from the Suzuka Japanese Grand Prix here. Now it's a bit of a slow start for myself. Albon gets us on the run into turn 1. They're 3 wide behind already. The pair of McLarens maintain P7 and P8. Sainz, Alonso, wheel to wheel. It'll be Alonso who comes out on top of that battle. Now contact in the back there. In the midfield, that was Tsunoda. And the Red Bull nearly going fully around as he went at it and with the Mercedes of Russell, and then he slides again, and they continue on. Everybody gets through without too much issue. Verstappen took a grid penalty. I believe he's down the order. I mean, he did start well down the order, P14. Actually, I think he just had a really bad start and didn't go anywhere. We're used to seeing him go forward. It just wasn't the start he was looking for. So Verstappen got some work to do. This is on board with Tsunoda. Oh my goodness, getting at it with those guys, and somehow hangs on to it as we continue on. So we maintain P6, started 5th, dropped down a position to our Williams teammate of Alex Albon, who scored the only points for the team so far this season. Lando Norris looking for a nose in towards 130R, and I'm going to leave him the space, but the door gets shut nonetheless, so we maintain P6 as we complete this first and opening lap. Now Leclerc out in front over Lewis Hamilton as he wants to make a statement saying, hey, you might be the new guy here at Ferrari, a team that I have kind of had focus around me over the last handful of years, and he hasn't really been under a whole lot of pressure. Carlos Sainz maybe put him under pressure a few times here and there, but outside of that, Leclerc's still been the main guy. But Lewis Hamilton has immediately come to Ferrari and disrupted that in a matter of 2 rounds. As we come through into this 3rd round of the season, who's it going to be? Leclerc, or is it going to be Hamilton? It'll be really interesting to see when we get maybe around mid-season what team or what driver on that team gets prioritized now. As rookie Aiden Jackson going through on the new Haas driver of Esteban Ocon into turn 1. The Frenchman will let the young Brit get through, and then Sebastian Vettel a lap later in the Sauber is going to be able to go through on the Haas as well. So 15th and 20th for the pair of Haas between Esteban Ocon as well as Oli Behrman. But the 2 Ferraris right now driving away, and on paper they are not even a top 3 team in R&D. It's, well, Aston Martin, it's Red Bull, it's Williams. That's the top 3 on paper, but we're not really seeing paper replicate the results on the racetrack. Ferrari was on top last episode. They look to be on top again today. Aston Martin seems to be where they should be. Williams maybe, but Red Bull have just been off. Tsunoda and Verstappen, they've been struggling as a team here. Now as we put pressure on our teammate of Alex Albon, we'll look up the inside, wheel to wheel on the run into turn number 1. He lifts early, lets us have it. Albon saying, hey, I get the situation. Didn't even need to request help from the team. Albon just kind of lays off, lets it happen. Speaking of Red Bull, Yuki Tsunoda moving through into P9, passing George Russell. Verstappen just behind, looking for a move on Gasly. Can't quite complete it. He'll have to stay behind the Alpine driver. Really feel bad for Alpine. Gasly, Butler, they were on pace. That team was going into the season to look really strong, and they've gotten it wrong through the regulation changes, and now they find themselves in, of course, a position where they've scored no points so far this season in the first 2 rounds. But it is a long season, as you can now see the 2 Aston Martins going at it. Sainz, Alonso, the 2 Spaniards now wheel to wheel into the final chicane. Sainz will come out on top. He goes through from 4th to 3rd on Alonso, and now we might have an opportunity here to put some pressure on Fernando in the coming moments. Here we go, a run to the back of him, but hold on, he's got a run on Sainz. He goes defensive. Alonso going to try to go the long way around. He slams on the brake pedal. We nearly pile into the back of him, and fortunately we lift and react in time to avoid contact. We continue to pressure him all the way through lap 10 right to the back wing, but don't want to make a move into here. That's just silly to try and go too wide. You're just going to cost yourself more time than you would if I just did this. Follow him and wait for the proper moment, which the proper moment is going to be their front straightaway with the DRS to make it a lot easier now as we pull out to the right side by side down this long straightaway, and hopefully Alonso's not going to make it too difficult now. And actually, just as that was happening, Hamilton had actually used the DRS to go breezing past Charles Leclerc, so Hamilton into the lead of this Japanese Grand Prix here from Suzuka. We continue to move forward. Here's the big run now to the back of Carlos Sainz. It goes right, I go left, and here we go around the outside. Sainz, though, not gonna concede. We'll continue wheel to wheel and a little bit wide out of the first few corners, and now he fights back and gets back ahead. Sainz maintains the 3rd position as Leclerc losing some ground to his teammate of Lewis Hamilton. We're both reeling in Leclerc suddenly as we approach lap 13, though. Our pit window has opened. We come in, get down to pit speed, down to 45 miles per hour in a 50 zone. We'll come in and get these hard compound tires on, and we're the only one that's pit, and we are on schedule. This is not a out of pocket, out of the ordinary, or out of off strategy pit stop. This is right where the pit window originally was, so I was a bit surprised to see that we're the only one coming in, and we'll exit, of course, in P20. Ollie Behrman, Isaac Hadjar, 2 rookies there in 18th and 19th. Then you got Hulkenberg, Devin Butler, P16 in his second season in Formula 1. Big difference between himself and I this season. Our car is a lot quicker than his, as I'm sure he's wishing right now maybe he wouldn't want to stay at Sauber. I mean, because at the same time he's running pretty well where Sauber's running here, as Hadjar now comes in. We've got ourselves caught up in some traffic, but pitting a lap earlier, what will this mean for a track position? Well, it means we're in front of Carlos Sainz. We're side by side with Behrman, who lifts, and we're right to the back of the Monegasque of Charles Leclerc. But the big question is, where will Lewis Hamilton come out here once this cycles through? I would expect Hamilton into the pits at the conclusion of this lap. Our problem now, we're really caught up in some traffic, and so is Charles Leclerc, but an aggressive move up the inside of the Ferrari in the hairpin. Wheel to wheel we go with Leclerc on the exit, hard on the throttle, trying to beat him on the run down towards the next pair of left-handers. Now we'll continue wheel to wheel with Leclerc as Hulkenberg's planted directly in front of the Ferrari, side by side, trying to leave some racing room, of course, trying to keep it fair, and keeping it fair leads to this. Great racing, but Leclerc comes out in front, and now he would have to follow Hulkenberg all the way through the final chicane. I would too, and they're all going to pit in front of us now, and Leclerc with a bit of a moment, we actually hit the back of him, but we still have a run. Hamilton's in the pit, so is Piastri, Tsunoda, as well as Alonso. Hamilton comes out well in front of all of us as we clear Leclerc, and now up into P2, so we still make a gain, but Hamilton just about 3 seconds up the road with a little bit over 10 laps to go in this Grand Prix. The question is, what kind of pace now do we have? And the answer was not good pace. I was struggling as Leclerc and Sainz, a battle behind side by side into 130R. Those two going at it, which is helping me. This is perfect for myself. But what I'm realizing is my pace on the hard tire isn't quite what it was on the medium compound tire, and now Sainz would officially get through on Leclerc into third, and he is closing in, but the gap to Hamilton is unfortunately growing. He's now 5.1 seconds up the road, and that gap is really only increasing. I say that it's down to 4.8, but it goes immediately back up to 5.1, and now we're under pressure from Carlos Sainz. So my pace on the mediums was way better than my pace is right now on the hard tire. The gap to Hamilton, 6.5 seconds on lap 18, 10 laps to go at this point, and now I'm draining my overtake. I'm draining my battery, trying to stay ahead of these guys, and realizing that whatever we had on the medium compound tire, we don't have on the hard compound tire. I mean, we were moving forward in the late laps on that pit strategy on that medium tire, but we just don't have anything on these hards, and it's just a matter of time because we're going to drain this battery trying to stay out in front, and at that point, we of course are going to be pretty well defenseless, and that's when basically these guys are probably going to be able to start to take significant advantage. And here comes now Sainz on lap 19 coming towards 130R. I only have 4 or 5% battery, and Sainz goes up the inside into 130R side by side. We go a little bit wide. He'll complete the overtake there, and now up into P2 he goes. We drop down to the final spot on the podium, but that's the big thing. We're still in position to score our first podium. We slide there on the exit and maintain track position nonetheless. 8 laps to go as we close in on Sainz. We'll show the nose. Not going to be close enough to make a move. Let's go through the grid.
It's all Lewis Hamilton in control here in these closing laps. He looks to go 2 for 3 in his new start with Ferrari. Impressive start to the season for the 7-time champion.
There's some focus on Lando Norris. McLaren ended last year so strong, but sadly for them, dropped the ball a bit again over the off-season. Now they once again are in catch-up mode. Red Bull as well, looking a bit slow to start the year.
Which is shocking because based off pre-season testing, we expected them to be the fastest team alongside Aston Martin. It hasn't quite played out that way for them so far.
Our good friend Sebastian Vettel runs 14th currently, not far behind rookie Aiden Jackson, who's maybe gone to Mercedes at the wrong time.
Devin Butler in the 16th. It's been a slow start to the year with his new team.
Isaac Hadjar, Ollie Behrman at the bottom of the grid as Carlos Sainz has opened up the gap by over a second now, and he's going to finally break that DRS from myself And now we have to really try and defend against Charles Leclerc and maybe Fernando Alonso before this is over. Our first podium in Formula 1 might have to wait if we can't play our cards right, but we're going to fight as hard as we can. And unfortunately, it's going to be against a Ferrari, so we're going to have to be smart about this, considering how things went in China against Lewis Hamilton with that late race contact, and of course Hamilton with his words that he had. But here comes Leclerc on lap 23, nothing even for him. Actually lifts. We go side by side into turns 1 and 2. We are now clear, but again wide, and Leclerc fights back even as we start going through the S's. Alonso just behind, and Leclerc not going to give this one up easily. Neither of us will, but he gets through, and into third he goes. We drop down to P4. It's far from over. We can still do this. If we can stay within DRS, we can really focus on saving our battery up to give ourselves maybe a late push with 2 or 3 laps to go and have an opportunity to maybe get back out in front and hope that we can defend from that point on. But it's going to take, like I said, some saving of the battery, and it was hard to do. We're now only at 21% or so, 22%. It's going up a little bit, but not as much as I would like. So if we get an opportunity, we got to take it immediately and just hope for the best. Hamilton on cruise control. Leclerc probably going to be rattled by that. Again, that Hamilton's going to go and win 2 races in the first 3, while Leclerc has won none. As we are reeling him in, use some battery to get to him now as we approach 3 laps to go in this race. We have a comfortable gap to Fernando Alonso of 0.7 of a second, so we have a bit of freedom to fight with Leclerc here. As we exit the final turn, 3 laps remain. Signs gone 3.5 seconds down the road. We use some more battery. A big run on Leclerc. He goes defensive to the right side of the circuit. To the left we go. He's not going to lift this time. We'll go wheel to wheel. Leclerc shoves us off. We slip, we slide, we overcorrect, and off circuit we go into the gravel and sliding across the surface. Oh my goodness.
I mean, what is he doing? He just completely ran me off. I swear, I'm just going to beat.
I have no idea what that was, mate. Just hang on here. We're racing for a point.
Not impressed. We collide with the Ferrari again, but this time after putting Hamilton on the receiving end in China, we're on the receiving end of the contact this time. You be the judge of that one, but Leclerc never even gave us an opportunity to race there, wheel to wheel. My goodness, we're down to P10 and the heartbreak continues. We're going to have to wait another race to score our first podium, and again losing a large chunk of points now as we try to hold off Russell and Gasly for just 1 single point. Now Lewis Hamilton in cruise control over now Sainz and Leclerc, who's joining his Ferrari teammate on the podium now, as long as he can hold off Fernando Alonso. As we start the final lap, Lando Norris gonna go through on Alex Albon into turn 1. Albon really didn't try to fight it that much actually, so P6 goes Albon, Tsunoda, Piastri, Verstappen all to follow just behind as we start this final lap of this Japanese Grand Prix. And absolute frustration, heartbreak here for us, and anger as well, as you could imagine, as we just quite simply got punted off the circuit by Charles Leclerc. Didn't even try to race. That was just straight up silly on his side, and I would love to hear his thoughts on that one, because I mean, we've raced fine with Charles Leclerc in the past, and I've done him some favors, Abu Dhabi specifically in the season 1 finale, and he did not seem to care this time around. Final few corners for Lewis Hamilton. Hamilton making a statement. He'll win 2 of the first 3 rounds with his new team. He won 1 race all last season. He wins 2 already in season 2 2025. Hamilton with another win here from Suzuka. It will be Carlos Sainz coming through to finish in P2. Leclerc will come home P3. As for us, it's going to be 1 single point in what should have been far more than 1 point, and that's going to be our first and only point of this season so far. Albon will bring us to a tally of 11 for the team with the points he scores today. Just complete frustration, to say the least, on my end.
I don't know what to say, guys. Even when the car is fine, something goes wrong. Yeah, sorry. Nothing I could have done.
Wasn't your fault, mate. It happens. We'll keep fighting.
That's it then for another fantastic Grand Prix here in Japan. A brilliant victory that has thoroughly earned the applause of the sellout crowd here today.
So it's going to be Ferrari on top in the constructors, the drivers with Hamilton, as him and Alonso were tied coming into this round. Obviously, Hamilton will take control of that now. So far, it's the two old guys atop the standings coming into this round. Obviously, it will change up a little bit here, and now these guys will get to come out and celebrate a podium. Good to see Carlos Sainz at least get a podium. Charles Leclerc asked about that contact with myself on the podium. Let's see what he had to say.
Honestly, didn't expect him to try that move around the outside. A bit silly on his part, if you ask me. He's new to racing up front. He will learn.
Interesting words there from Charles Leclerc, kind of putting all the blame on me, and in a matter of 2 races we have collided controversially with both Ferrari drivers, a team that we are trying to be on in the future. And in moments like that, it'll be interesting to see how that affects our relationship with Ferrari. Certainly not happy with Leclerc. I mean, the Hamilton one in China was on me. This one I feel very different about. That was definitely not on my end. But you can see Behrman, Hadjar at the bottom of the grid there for the Haas and V-Carbs. Vettel ends up P16 over Lawson and his teammate of Hulkenberg. We look at the standings. It's Hamilton, Alonso. 13 points separate the two. Leclerc 20 back. Lando Norris P4. We're down in P13. We've got some work to do. Albon in P9. And in the Constructors, Ferrari ahead by 29 points over Aston Martin. Red Bull in third over McLaren. And us at Williams now overtaking Mercedes at least. That's going to wrap it up for me. I'll see you guys in the next episode from Bahrain. Thank you for watching. Have a great day.